like it's a personal thing because my age and how I grew up watching those movies, uh, Back to the Future. But you know, uh, I forget what we were saying.
The summer of '84 or '85 is a particularly famous summer for the number of movies that came
I
out.
think it's the Zenith. I think it's the greatest.
Summers.
It's a
It might
summer.
have been one. It might have been specifically one of them.
Anyway, it had nothing to do with that, but I really I have to like sometimes I have to watch them. I get like uh anxiety watching movies because I get like overly emotional, like maybe
Mhm.
more than a normal person should. Like I'm a man who is I'll admit I cry during movies. I not only do I
Bambi.
cry, Bambi, yes, Mulan.
Yeah, but is
Cried.
crying during a movie anxiety related or
No,
just
like I have
emotion?
full on seizures sometimes. Like if a
Oh,
movie, like Mike's seen it, House of a Thousand Corpses did it to me. Like if I see
it made you
something
cry?
no, it was so graphic and so
Yeah.
like that I would almost like I'll almost throw up. I like pass out on the floor. Like my body will just be like, nope, we ain't watching this. So like I had
Mm.
some movies I have to watch twice. Like
The desensitized.
yeah, like or I have to watch like I can't watch them alone because like I'll
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say I wouldn't be inclined to watch a movie that gave me seizures a
bro,
second
you
time.
remember when I watched Thousand Corpses and then like Requiem for a Dream is one of
Oh
those
God,
messed up movies that
that
did it
one's
to me. It
terrible.
did it to my friend too, so I didn't feel as bad because I was and like there's TV shows that do it too sometimes and I don't it's not really there's any trigger to it and it's not really a full on seizure. It's more of an anxiety attack like uh I don't know. It's hard to explain.
There's definitely TV shows where I'm like, I definitely shouldn't be eating
Watching this?
watching
Yeah.
Clarice. That's not like a
Oh,
good.
I haven't
Not
seen
like a good
that yet.
idea.
That's good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, a
It's
couple
interesting
episodes.
because I'm unaffected for the most part. I just am. My problem is,
I
and
love
where I'm
horror
criticized,
and
my
gore. Don't get me wrong.
so my problem is, and where I get criticized is that I find humor in a lot of cases in scenes in films where people are where like the scene is meant to be appalling or stark, and I don't know what that is. You
Like
know,
dark
I
humor.
well, like Seven, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that whole scene at the end where Brad Pitt is, begging
What's in the
the
box?
murderer to know what's in the box is
What's
like
in the
if I
box?
watch it now, like I mean, side splitting laughter,
I
It's
and I
think of
think it's
funny
Dune.
because
though.
I think it makes me think of Dune. What's in the
What's
box?
in the
like
What's in
box?
the
listen, I just can't
box?
stop when I
What's
watch it. I
in...
can't stop. I was in the theater and everybody was looking at me because I was laughing like I was watching like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective 2 or something. You know
That's
what I
what
mean?
I mean.
Like I
Like
was laughing so hard and I
That's
couldn't control
I have a
it.
dark humor like that too, but I still get like really affected by some scenes. Like I'm just like, ooh.
It
that
was like
happened to
the
me.
acting was really poor. Go
Yeah,
on, Flav.
yeah. I definitely didn't think the acting was great in that scene, but everyone else seems to disagree. But that happened to me with The Good Son. Of course,
Hmm.
I was really really high off of like really good weed, and this was like earlier in my smoking
Was this the
days.
Macaulay
So
Culkin movie
yes,
where he like
he's
yeah?
like the
That movie
bad
was
son.
fucked up.
Yeah, I was laughing my ass off during that movie, but you know,
Yeah.
take
I
that for
had my
what it's
friends
worth.
looking at me like, dude, what is wrong with you? I'm like,
Uh,
y'all don't see how funny this is? He's like, what's in the box, man? What's in the box?
What's in the
Come on.
box?
It was so funny.
I mean, I still quote that. What's in the box? It's pretty funny.
It's funny,
Is
like
that like every time it's like your birthday or something, or
What's in the? Come
someone gets you a gift?
on.
come on, what's in the
Christmas.
box? It was
What's in
just
the
so
box?
the acting was so bad. Like he was
Yes.
so bad.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. I don't know why people thought that was good acting. People were like,
Okay.
I love the movie. I have
Brad,
to say, I love that movie, and I think that Brad Pitt is a good actor. It was
He
just
is.
okay.
it was just one bad scene. It was
Yes,
just one bad scene.
One
That's
bad scene. One bad
It's like,
scene.
what's in the
That's it.
box, man? What's in the
What's in the
box?
box?
it'll live forever, though. That quote will live forever until our entire generation is dead. That quote will live forever.
No, before beyond. Like that's the thing now. Is like everything is we're sitting here saying dumb things. They're like that makes me nervous is this. Somebody's gonna be like, oh, I gotta show you this from 2021, like 100 years in the future. They're gonna be watching it like it's vintage TV.
Right. Like, remember when they had that conversation about what's in the box? So just to get back on focus, there was actually something. So before you came on, Matt, before we got into our conversation about cry freedom, I was asking Pam about I was actually going somewhere. We were talking about just the state of things in America, which like that's every water cooler conversation in the country right now, right? Like that horse is probably beat dead,
How
taken
can
to the
you
glue
not?
factory, sold into glue and gorilla glue or what have you. But so I wanted to just mention something. Last night I was not watching the news, but listening to the news, and not by choice. Where I work, they had it on, and I heard a woman identify herself as a militant leader in a extremist group. And she had gone and taken tactical training, weapons training, the whole nine. And her testimony at this impeachment, which they're using, was that, and she said, paraphrasing, but I'm paraphrasing almost verbatim, but paraphrasing, we're going to Washington. She wasn't, she was mobilizing people to go to Washington based on the president's directive, but she conceded that while she was willing to act and do what was necessary to engage in warfare, she used the words, we're not going to participate until the president gives the signal, until we're activated. And she used the word activated. And she said, she was communicating with another group that wasn't her group, but we're going to be in partnership, 5 members of the Proud Boys, who were telling their people that, they're getting ready for war. She was certainly prepared for war, but she was intelligent enough to say that she was not going to participate until given the signal from the president or activated by the president. I'm just curious to know everyone's opinion on this particular impeachment and things like that coming to light. Is this a confirmation that the president incited this? That's the question I'm throwing out.
100% did. And here's how, like, everyone who's being tried now is throwing him under the bus. That's how you know who's at fault. Like,
well, hold on. Let me stop you there. It stands to reason that if you don't want to go to jail for treason, your fallback plan is the president led us to believe that this is what he wanted us to do.
Prove me that he didn't. I mean, he's the president. He's not a normal citizen anymore. Just like when he's on Twitter, that's not America. So he don't have free speech. If they want to get you sign over terms in service, when you sign into the presidency, there's a terms of service when you're sworn in at the inauguration to uphold the Constitution. And what he did when he didn't pass over peacefully is he willingly violated constitutional law. And
so are you saying that he incited an insurrection at the Capitol, and that is evidence of him not turning over the office peacefully?
Well, that's like, if that didn't happen, this would be a whole different story. Like, if he was just still out there saying, I won, everybody's wrong, I won. But if he has done it so much that a mob of people, I mean, look at Charles Manson. I mean, did Charles Manson murder anyone?
No, he didn't.
He's used a lot of the ex-presidents used a lot of insightful language.
Yeah, we shouldn't call him.
Yeah, and so for that, he's got to be held.
Well, I do want to apologize. I call him the president.
I did too.
I mean, I'm not apologizing for calling him the president. I'm apologizing if it offends anyone that I refer to him as the president, like I do any president of the United States.
That
That's just me, though.
Even if he's
Sorry.
even if they accuse him of having committed some kind of treason.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
at
until
what
he's
point-
convicted, until he's found guilty of committing treason.
Okay, but at that point, you feel comfortable no longer referring to him as president once he's convicted of treason.
Well, I don't know that takes away from the fact that he was president. So here's the thing. I think it's interesting and also embarrassing for me to watch liberal news refer to everyone else as Mr. President but Donald Trump, and they do. Like they were like former presidents, Bush and Obama, and incumbent president incumbent Biden, and they're like, and then Trump.
So you feel bad? You feel bad that Trump is getting left out?
No, I feel that it's a bad look for liberals to purposefully do that.
Disrespectful to the office of the president.
Yes.
And he was, I mean, whether we like it or not, which we don't, I guess, he was.
Well, that's why I asked the question. Like, I think there's a reason to make a distinction there. Certainly as someone who, has served like you have, and who maybe has a higher level of respect for offices, once someone is deemed an enemy of the state or has actually been convicted of treason, do you no longer have a duty to recognize them as president? And is the distinction between former president and still always considered president, because once you were, you always are. I mean, isn't that distinction something to worthy of thinking about?
It's worthy of thinking about.
How did they address Richard Nixon?
Mr. President.
And then how did they address Bill Clinton?
Mr. President.
Right. I mean, he wasn't stripped of his title, but
well,
I think
Bill Clinton wasn't accused of treason either.
Correct.
Right.
No, I completely. But what I mean is that, like, I think it would be appropriate to refer, because they do refer to like the former presidents, right? Former city presidents or something.
They refer to him as Mr. President when
they refer to them as president. Yeah.
Right. So what are they going to do? Like, if Trump is found guilty, I think he's stripped of that title. I think that's the protocol.
And that I wonder if that's the protocol, then so be it, for sure. And I'll confirm to the protocol. But I'm often I'm compelled to think about certain a lesson that I learned actually in church, which is interesting, but it's just apropos because it fits here, right? Like, if the preacher falls, it doesn't take away from what he preached all the way up until the day that he fell. You know what I mean? It doesn't diminish his message and who he was up until the day that he fell from grace. You understand what I'm saying? He's now fallen from grace. So
what if he was disgraceful the whole damn time?
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between being abhorrent or unlikable or someone you disagree with versus treason.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I like to discuss a man named William Mumford, and who was hung for treason in this country for burning flags.
We don't kill people for treason anymore, though.
I know.
As a matter of fact, you don't even do more than 2 years in most cases.
Let's be honest. He's not going to be. That's not going to happen to him. But that's what should happen to him.
I mean, treason is really overblown in the eyes of the. But the act of treason is an overblown crime in the minds of the people who witness it, because the litigation, the actual, come on, the last person who committed treason in the military served 2 years. They spent 2 years in prison.
But what level of treason? Like this?
Well, I mean, they sold secrets that compromised the security of our country.
Yeah, this wasn't a riot. This compromised the security of our country. This was the very cradle, the citadel of our democracy, where our laws are made. It was attacked. It's a civil war.
Well, so we gotta put things in perspective here. Like, it's always subjective as to what we consider worse, right? Like, if a soldier who has top secret security clearance decides to turn over secrets that could compromise other soldiers in war, in combat, in the field, is that more? Is that worse or less than, like,
Less,
you know,
Le-
it's kind of
less.
subjective. It's
Less.
it's
subjective.
less than your
Well,
vote than wanting to burn and destroy your vote.
well,
As
I
if
mean, we're talking about
it might,
compromising the national security of our country as well as causing people to be killed.
I would
as
say the reason why I would say is less because one has a much higher position of authority, right? So you're going to a president who's willing to like turn over the country to like chaos, whereas one person's like an entry level employee.
See, I think that's one. I think that's certainly that's not a picture that you're painting, because someone who has a top secret security clearance is not an entry level employee. They're put in that position because the security of our country is entrusted to them, whether they be president or not. They're privy to things that the president may or may not be privy to. So when they're turning over secrets, that you know, there are people in positions that are privy to things that the president is on a need to know.
Well, you
This
said
is what,
you said soldier, so
yeah,
my
soldier.
first thought is an entry level
No, no,
employee.
no. A soldier is any. So let me just break down what a soldier is, because I'm actually, I should be broader. A soldier is just any member of the army. Doesn't matter what rank they are, right? Army personnel are referred to as soldiers. Marines are Marines, right? So like, you don't call a Marine a soldier. So I should actually be broader. Just, I'd say a military member is a better term. And that could be any rank. That could be any of the rank and file, from the general to the private.
I did want to just to mention something here to switch gears on a discussion that we had before. This is a Time article. The headline is, "Was Martin Luther King Jr. a Republican or Democrat?" I know that you and I have talked about this before, Ish. And the rest of the headline is, "The answer is complicated." But long story short, it's kind of difficult for people to pin down a personal political party affiliation. They say it remains a mystery. His niece, Alveda King, an evangelical supporter of President Donald Trump, tried to argue that her uncle was a Republican, like his father, Martin Luther King Sr., also a Baptist minister. But the idea, though it's been repeated often, videos claim to show that it's simply, it's not proven to be so. King's son, Martin Luther King III, said in 2008 that it's disingenuous to insist he was when there's no evidence of him casting a Republican vote. It's even more outrageous to suggest he would support the Republican Party of today, which has spent so much time and effort trying to suppress African American votes in Florida and many other states.
See, I think that article, I don't know the source. From hearing what you're reading up to this point, I certainly think the article is biased and certainly trying to muddy the waters rather than clear them up.
Well, it includes a quote from his son. It includes a quote from his niece.
I think his family would be complicit today. That's just my perspective.
Well, do what you will with the quotes, but but the idea is that it's hard for anyone to actually find any proof of what he was.
That's the idea of that article, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the idea of the article. He did vote for Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a Democrat. But beyond that, it's hard to find evidence of him supporting Republican candidates. And then, even then, we know about the party switching. The party switching back in, I guess was it around the 50s when the party switched?
50s into the 50s,
for racial reasons.
Early 50s, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I wonder if supporting a Republican candidate makes one a Republican.
I don't think
solely.
I don't think it does. And I think that there is too much emphasis put on the party. I mean, I think maybe that's the reason that it isn't known what his affiliation was, is because it's not really important, I mean, he fought for ideal, not for a party. And I think that maybe that's why he didn't share that information.
Hmm.
I think that like we should try to move beyond like party affiliations and, you know, trying to segregate people into left or right.
Yeah, I mean, I get all that. For me, I was just interested in it because, Ish was pretty adamant about him being a Republican, and I hadn't heard of it at all, and I kind of felt surprised that I hadn't heard of it. But I mean,
it's a major theme associated with Martin Luther King, which is interesting. That's the only reason why I question the validity or the intent behind this particular article, especially in the present times. That's the only reason why. Doesn't mean I don't think the article is valid. I just question its intent.
I think it's a device. It is pretty divisive. Like I only heard what Mike said from it, but like I think why do we need to know that? Like what was Gandhi's political affiliation? I mean, who cares?
I think saying that you don't care. I mean, I respect.
Was an American.
I respect how you feel, but like, political affiliations are a thing. They happen, they happen for a reason. It's interesting. Like if, like Pam said, if he specifically didn't put it out there, I care about that too. Like that in of itself is interesting to me. If he specifically didn't want people to know, then that's interesting as well.
Is it because in the context of the times, it wasn't nearly as important as it is now?
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I question the intent of the article, because it's important now.
Right.
The overarching issue is, every Martin Luther King Day, people who don't give a shit about black people or what Martin Luther King stood for, people who will never mention his anti-war or anti-capitalist positions, which he had very strong anti-capitalist positions. They will never mention that. These people put MLK's mouths in their name, and many of them are Republican.
Name in their mouths.
And yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, everybody puts beer in their mouth on St. Patrick's Day. What the hell do you want us to do, man?
Listen, I don't have a problem with anyone that uses Martin Luther King's name to speak about if it's whether they mention his anti-capitalism or not. Martin Luther King, like I feel like Pam, said, stood for something bigger than just Republican and Democrat.
No, I feel like, of course he did, but a lot of the usage of his name is disingenuous, and it's from people who don't give a shit about people.
I shouldn't have said I don't care, but I meant it like that. Like I don't care.
No, I get
it's pandering.
Well, I don't care. I co-sign. I don't care.
Pandering.
Pandering is bad.
I think that he may have been a Republican because I'm sure he wasn't pro-choice.
True.
Well, see, I asked about that, but I don't know if back then
it was really
if that was part of.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah, but it's easy to assume that as a reverend, he was probably against any concept of abortion.
Right, but I'm saying that I don't know that the party's
against homosexuality as well.
And he wasn't very friendly to like women in general. I mean, I'm not saying that he was like a horrible. No, I'm sorry.
Whoa.
No, wait. I'm not saying that he was like a horrible misogynist. I'm just saying that like I don't know if he necessarily held women in the same regard as he held men.
Right, but the things that we're talking about, I do not think were associated with the parties back then.
No, they weren't. And the reason that they started associating those things with the party was so that they could make the party larger. Because my husband's father was
they weren't associated with the party, but they were certainly associated with the concept of republicanism.
Right. And the reason that, and like my husband's father was a Democrat forever. But he's very religious. And so in the 70s and 80s, when the Republicans became the party of life or whatever they want to call it, he switched over. And so he votes for things that he finds abhorrent because of one issue.
I have aunts and uncles like that.
Yeah, no, the one voter issues, I mean, let's be clear. Black folks are not one voter issues. We're just not. I mean, we don't do the one. Sorry, I keep.
One
I
issue
keep.
voter.
Yeah, one issue voter. So yeah, we don't do that. So I mean, the civil rights was definitely tied into the church, but also tied in to the Democratic Party at that time. So there wasn't this like, oh, you're a religious guy, so you got to be a Republican. There was none of that. We were all religious. We all went to church, and we
Well,
probably
no,
all disagreed
that's
with
not that
abortion.
we weren't all religion, the same type of religion for sure. Like
Okay.
half of the black community did not support Martin Luther King. Certainly not the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
Right.
But regardless, yeah, the two weren't. It wasn't like that. Like you're a church goer, so you're a Republican. It wasn't like
Well,
that. I mean,
Not until abortion, really.
it certainly wasn't any more than it was. You didn't vote for a Republican candidate, so you're not a Republican. You're absolutely right. However, Christian values in this country have more often than not co-aligned with Republicanism. Doesn't mean that they're Republicans.
American
not.
Christianity.
Is that
Right.
on purpose by the party? Which that's what I think, is that they align themselves to latch on to that to strengthen their party, which is what Nixon, I think, is the one who nurtured that and gave birth to it. And
I
now
believe
that's what we have. We don't have. It's not that people are have Republican values. It's that Republican values are trying to manipulate, and that's
Co-opted.
terrible.
They're
yeah,
co-opting.
they definitely co-opted it. I'm asserting
Good word.
that black people were not moved by Republican attempts to co-opt Christianity. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I could agree with that. I don't not. I mean, not from outside perspective. But.
And I'll just throw out there that those values that they adopted, whether they were moved by the co-opt or not, still fell into alignment. Doesn't make them Republican.
Right. Well, I mean, alignments.
It just makes them shady.
Yeah, I mean, it makes them great at it makes them great at marketing, right? You say, oh, you're with us, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, you're actually with us.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I mean, it makes black people shady too, though.
I mean, people are people. Everyone's shady,
Yeah.
right? So
Well-
like, it makes white people shady, black people shady.
Well, I don't know how it makes black people
Those
shady
values
by-
are shady to me. They just are. They're shady values. I don't agree with them. So from my perspective, they are shady.
Not all of them
But
are
I'm saying,
birthing shadiness, though. You know.
but I'm saying not allowing some group to pull you into what they're doing.
Oh,
by
no.
trying to claim your
I was
values.
just saying that the values themselves that they're trying to claim are shady.
Mhm.
A few of them are inherently shady, like not accepting people based on their you know, that you can't accept someone either because they're homosexual or because their religion's different. They have to switch to your religion. That shit's absurd. Like,
Which Martin Luther King was a strategist enough to say that all men are created equal and espouse every part of the Constitution that speaks to creed, religion, everything covered under that umbrella. And he didn't let his religious values, one way or another, get in the way of the message that he was delivering.
I find it very strange that we divide or divide ourselves and devise and define our culture based on values, not just Christian values, but over 2,000 some year old values that have no basis on today's what's really going on in our world in science. Like, if you look at the world scientifically, these people deny climate change. It's just absurd just because of what a 2,000 some year old book says. My I mean, I'm not trying to throw the Bible, say it's just a book. Some people are very, very, or the Quran, but I'm putting a global umbrella on all these books.
Well,
That
I mean,
you can't.
let's keep it real though. These people don't even know their own book.
Correct.
Right. That's the other absurdity of it. They spew this nonsense that isn't even in there.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
It upsets me.
I don't agree there.
Well, I don't think our politics should be like people. It's one thing if you believe, in our saying is about unicorns living in your shoes. That's all fine and dandy. But then when you tell me I can't put my shoes on because of the unicorns, then we got problems.
I agree. I don't agree with the notion that people don't know their own book. I don't agree with that. I also don't
Many of them
necessarily
don't.
agree with.
I thought we were
Many
saying
of them
what I said.
I would question, is the source of that information coming from someone who does know the book?
Yes.
I
That's
know Mike
what I
does
would question,
personally,
like-
and
Yes.
Because it's one thing for someone not to someone who not you, Mike, or Flav, excuse me, for someone who reads the
Flav,
book
yeah.
from a critical eye, right? Versus someone who reads the book from an intimate understanding of the history and what some of the metaphors or what some of the terminologies that were translated mean. Like I'm not preaching one way or the other. I always take
the fact that
umbrage.
the fact that you know what the word transliteration means you're already miles ahead of these people I'm talking about.
Right. No,
here's
I'm not criticizing you, Mike. I often
No,
criticize.
no,
Like,
no,
I have
I'm-
friends that are atheists that will
I'm not
pose-
saying that you are, but I'm saying the fact that you know what that word means you're miles ahead of the people I'm criticizing.
Okay.
here's
I
the thing.
I get what you're saying.
The party is led by a man that calls it 2 Corinthians and can't quote it, doesn't have any concept or understanding, and he's driving these people. They're beating people with the American flag and fire extinguishers. Like,
So
That's
so
not
just
Christian.
to throw this out there, there's a few things that I take umbrage with. Not that what anyone has said today in this
okay.
conversation at all. Two of the things that I take umbrage with is what Flav explained about, and not Flav. I take because not what anyone said today in this conversation or anyone in this conversation. I've had conversations with atheists where they'll quote the scripture and be like, "This is what this means," and I'm like, "Well, that's not what it means." Yeah, I can read it. Okay. That's not what it means. You understand what I'm saying? You don't really
Yes.
have an intimate understanding of what it means, so you're reading it at face value and telling me that that's what it means. It's like me only knowing English, picking up a math book and telling the math teacher you don't know math. So for me, it's like, and the other thing is when people assert that Christians don't have a concept of science. There are people who call themselves Christians that suck, that accept science and will look you in the face and refute it.
I should apologize for that because I did grow up in a
No,
Christian
you don't have to
household.
apologize because I'm not talking about you. Like,
I know,
I'm not
but
at all.
I did
Like,
say
these are
something
things
about
that-
science. I don't know what I
No,
said.
that's what led me to that. But I'm literally not talking. I don't take umbrage with anything that is said in this conversation. So Matt, you don't have to apologize at all. Like, I'm not. We're on one level, and I get where you're coming from because you're not wrong. You understand what I'm saying?
No,
Like, that's
I
why
was-
I said
I was
there
raised
are
Christian.
Christians who will totally, like, they take science in school. They know how science works. They know how it applies in our life, and
Yeah.
will look you in the face
And
and
lie.
refute science.
Yes.
Mhm, right.
They'll lie.
Right.
Or
Right.
just
And for
flat out
something that they
deny
don't
it.
understand, that they like to put under the banner of faith. And I'm someone who has faith, but as someone who is spiritual, I will tell you, and I've always told people this, I will always say this. I don't think that spiritual values and science, I don't think that they're two separate entities. I think they are the same.
No, they're
think
exactly
that
the same.
Science, I've argued that science is faith-based.
Yes, it is. You have
Did-
to have faith in, like, I mean, there's some crazy fucking science out there, like parallel
Right.
universes.
Right. Check this out. I don't know if we
Nobody
talked
understands.
about this.
None of us in this conversation is a quantum physicist.
Right.
We believe in quantum physics because
And we
somebody
may
else
have
told
studied
us.
it, but
Yes.
So somebody else told us.
Yes.
It broke it down and did the work
But-
for us.
Yes.
check this. Here's 5 real things. This is gonna be I'm gonna try and bring it back to you. And there's a 3-step question to a triangle logic to this too. Okay, so there's 5 things that make us live in a non-real reality. The fact that
Time check, Flay.
nothing.
You got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. Speed of light is you can't go faster than it, right? Quantum entanglement, where I can do when things are quantumly entangled, they can be at separate parts of the universe, and without they can move faster than the speed of light. They instantaneously can be affected by each other in covalent bonds and all kinds of other ways. Shoot. Oh, what's the last 2? Oh shoot.
These are really
Okay.
intense concepts.
Well, yeah, well, they are. Well, here's the other
Yeah,
thing.
my man brought up covalent bonds.
I know. I'm
haven't heard
like,
that since,
what?
But do you understand what a COVID? I don't want to. I only got 4 minutes.
I just haven't
Okay.
heard it since high school.
Right. Here's the triangle logic to it all. Either human beings never evolve to post-humanic state to we aren't going to evolve past 46 and 2, as they call it, the next evolution. Like as if you believe in evolution, I don't know if it's a concept some people don't. I have to give them credit. Okay, so you believe that we're going to evolve one more step. The next step will take us to a transubstantiation of singularity. Either that doesn't happen, either we're not interested in simulation, like essentially video games, which is like the #1 industry in the world right now, where we lose interest in that completely, or we're right now living in a simulation. Only one of those things can be true. Boom, triangle logic. And all those other concepts, there's 3 more that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'll talk about them again another time.
But there are other concepts that are also deemed to be true, and these are hypotheses.
Right. No, these are all. This is all part of, like we were saying, quantum. It's string theory, and it's
quantum physics specifically.
But I'm not an expert. I just know what I've been told and what I've witnessed. Like nothing. We haven't broken speed of light yet, and I don't think we may ever do it. You know.
Well, here's the thing.
Thousands of years.
It's interesting that you say that, right? And we're going to cut off, but I do want to pick this back up, because that quantum theory, that's one aspect of human learning and understanding. And what we do is we compare these with other hypotheses from other, I guess the best term is sciences, even though they're not hard sciences, right? Like, so a dissertation was written in the 50s or 60s about the advancement of civilization and what it would take for humans to advance to the next evolutionary step. One of the things was we needed to harness the power of a star and stop using fossil fuels, right? So like one of the things that we're doing is we're just starting to use solar energy. Just starting. We're not even at year 0, right? At what we can really do. That's harnessing the power of a star, right? Another thing is, I mentioned stop using fossil fuels, right? What they're theorizing or hypothesizing, how you mentioned, the AI or the simulation. One of the hypotheses is that we become self-sufficient, where like we don't need human bodies.
We don't need food,
like we have artificial bodies.
Right. In one way or another, the singularity.
Right.
I mentioned.
Right. I mean,
that's scary.
There's also a theory that every person has a biological clock, right? That no matter who you are, there's a clock, and it's set to a certain time, and that time could be 24 hours of life or 76 years of life, no matter how healthy you are.